Hi sir, my topic is computer cloud computing fuel system. First, we will look into the what are the things I did within the my assignment. First, within the if I talk discuss about the table of the content. First, in here we have a table of content and the acknowledgement. All the coding with the GitHub. It's mean I uploaded all the coding into the GitHub, and I gave some introduction. And here we have a use cases and the development of the architecture, and also I developed the front end for this fuel management system, and also I front end and the back end also is there. And I did some API, and locally I also test my API, and put API and the post API, and also I created the backend service, and the front end structure is also there. Check-in already vehicle model template, all the codings is also there, and the sign up template, and the APIs route, and the services servers is also there. And also I generated the QR code in order to take the fuel, and also is there admin part is there. And I locally developed my software fuel management system, and I dockerize it, and I make a image, and I put into the AWS, and also is there how to install it, and run the servers, check in backend and the REST client. And I also used for connect the backend and the front end XS, and also I use the MongoDB. And that's all for here for a table of the content. If I go for a another second part of how to deploy my project. And first I installed the React QR reader, and also AWS CLI, and install the Docker and the Docker image, and I test also Docker image, and run server inside the Docker container. And I also create the repository and the ECR, and also push command ECR. It means after I created the Docker image, I push into the Amazon ECR, and here also I mentioned the ECR. And when we after I created the Fargate, I submitted it, and the internet gateway is there, route tables are there, and also I use the ECS Amazon Elastic Container Services for deploy it. And also is there is the application load balancer. And also I run my project within the Fargate using port is 80. And also I mentioned some references. If I go for a project structure, and here this is the my project structure, I locally develop my fuel management system. And here we have a backend part, and within the backend part, if I go for a click on the backend, and if I go for a route tables, and he's there all the routers. And here you can see the all the coding parts also is there, update part, and read, it means the get part, and the read. And also we have a sign up API also is there. And this is the routing tables. And if I go for a server, within the server you can see the all the APIs. It means first a request come to the this server, then within the API it's we can open the sign up page, and the registration, and everything we can see. And for testing purposes, I use some post method. Using post method, I check it for check the sign up page and everything. And if I go for a component part, within the component we have content.js, and displaying user coordinates there, and name form, and name form test, and the QR code part is there, and the sign in part is there. Also you can see all the coding part. This is a React.js, and if I go for a about us page also there, and the admin data entering part is there for this is actually for register the vehicle part, and the admin page for and also is there contact page, and the home page is scan QR code, right? For if you we have to scan the QR code for generate the fuel. And also this is the all the coding is there for testing, and the test admin part is there, and also test setup testing, and index.js. This is the main JS page, app test, right? This is the actually basic structure. This is actually app JS page, and it's we first come to the here, and here we have about us page, and the display user, scan QR, admin page, and the test admin. Likewise here we have a root. And if I open my basic front end page, and here every customer can register here, and the customer need to enter the full name, username, email, password, and the vehicle numbers, then need to register it. And if I go for a sign in page, and here he or she can get the QR. It's mean here we have to enter the vehicle number, and we have to enter the password, then we can get the details. Details means we can download the QR code. And when I describe my assignment with assignment page assignment, I will show the all the outputs and the input is there. And here this is the locally run. We can scan the QR code, and we can deduct the fuel from here. And for a admin registration part also there. This is the my front end of the my uh, fuel pass project. And if I open the my assignment, first within the assignment I mention is this is all the pages, all the my codings is within the GitHub. I push into the GitHub, and here you can see the all the data is there. And if I go for a introduction, and here I first develop this fuel management system locally. And after I develop this fuel management system locally, I make a Docker image, and push into the AWS. Then using Fargate we run my application. And here within my system, basically we have use cases like fuel user can register it, and fetch QR code and the details, and user can also log into the system. And also admin can check the login system, and add vehicle details. Admin can add the vehicle details, and they scan the deduct the fuel, and the pump man can the scan and the deduct the fuel. And this is the basic development architecture. Here we have this is the solution local development of the API front end and the back end. I develop it the locally, and built a container image using Docker, and use the ECS. Using ECS I upload this image, push into this ECS, and use the AWS Fargate, and the launch the container, and the manage the container. This is the structure for my project. And if I go for a front end, here you can clearly see this is the image of the front end page. And here first we have to enter the username and the password, email, password, vehicle number, and we can register it. And here you can clearly see enter your details to the QR code. It's mean after register the customer into the system, customer can get the QR code. It's mean here you can see the vehicle number and the password. After I submit it, here basically you can see the username means the customer details, and the available quota, and this time, and the vehicle number also there. And this is the QR code. And this is how I scan the QR code. After I scan this QR code, here you can see the vehicle number and the special ID, and this is the owner, and this is the vehicle number, and the available quota also generated. And using after, if I fill 1.2 liter or something, here we have a button, we just need to click on, and we have to submit it. And submitted 1.2, it's mean after deduct the fuel quantity, we can reduce the quantity. And after that, here we can see the admin page. Within the admin page, you can clearly see after logging to the admin page, the admin can add the vehicle details into the system. And GH 6798 van type, vehicle type, and the quota admin can add to the system. And here, this is the testing read API. This is how I locally test the API. And here using this is the JSON response. In here, actually you can see the QR code. This is how I generated the QR code, and for a fuel. And this is a put API, I have to submit, and I tested it, use API locally, I test it. Then here you can see the output. After I submit the put request, here we can get the response from the server. And here testing post API, here actually I registration check. This is actually a registration check. And the here you can see the full name, username, and the email, and the password, vehicle number, and the QR code also there. And backend service structure, in the beginning I told you this is the backend structure. And if I go for a front end structure, here you can see the application CS, APPIS, application test.js, index, logo, and the test. Likewise, we have a backend. And this is the already vehicle model template. I use the model for a registration purposes, vehicle number, vehicle type, quota. Likewise, I used it. Then after, if I come to the sign up template, this is also before we register into the system, we have to make a template, then only we can register using the MongoDB. And also here you can see the routing tables. Within the routing table, here we have model, sign up model, and the first router post within the sign up. This is the API for a sign up. And also we can see here clearly server structure is also there. This is I differ here I separately maintain the server, and here we have a front end part and the back end part. Within the back end part, I use the MongoDB, and this is the server. And server part, all the requests come to the server, then server control all the sign up part, and everything controlled by the server. And this is the port number for 4000. And if I go for a coding part, this is the coding for scan the QR code, and all the coding I upload into the GitHub. Within the GitHub, all the things is there. In the beginning, I mentioned the URL for a GitHub, and all the codings I included into my assignment. This is the coding for a admin. Here also Docker file. Before we make a Docker file, Docker image, I have to run this command as a npm install .force, and then I make a image, Docker image, and this is how I create the project, and all the images I included to my project. And making backend part also there, and installing packages like installing Mongo. Before the use the MongoDB, we have to use the we have to install these packages also there, and run the server. We have to run the server, and after run the server you can see the clearly see the server is run on the background. And this is how I use the this is like a postman. Here we can see the checking the backend using the REST client. I install the some module and in the Visual Studio Code REST client, then I check all the APIs. And here I also used for a connect the front end and the back end access for a back end, connect with the MongoDBs, and here you can see it. And install in npm QR code. It's mean for give the QR code for a customer, we have to install this package, then only we can generate the QR code. This is the I install the npm install QR code. And React QR code also I install it, and this is how I test it for a application with a like a vehicle number and the quarter type. This is admin part, testing admin part. And and after that, after I install the everything, after I locally develop my front end and the back end, also I trying to deploy my project into the AWS. Before the deploy it, I had to install the AWS CLI, and here you can see the installation part. And after install the CLI part, I install the Docker into my computer, then I dockerize it. It means create the Docker image. This is how I created the Docker image. And test in Docker image I did it, and the Docker container run it and run and test it whether this is work properly. And run the server inside the Docker container. It's mean actually after I image create, then I try to run the my server inside the Docker container. And this is how we create the ECR repository. And here this is the ECR creating the repository. I created it as a fuel system, and after I push into the ECR, this is how I push it. And here you can see all the coding I use for a push the my Docker image. And I use the Docker build T fuel system, Docker tag fuel system, and this is the I use the command for a push into the ECR my Docker image. And after I enter, after I push it here, this is you can see that it's working fine. And this is virtual private cloud. Right, and here you can see that now we use AWS ECS Elastic Container Service and use AWS Fargate to run the file system container. First need to network connect properly, and the container should be private. This is how I create the VPC, first VPC. And here also I make the Fargate subnet for the public. And you can see here you can see my VPC where private 2, and my VPC private 1, my VPC private 2, and the public VPC. Likewise I created all the VPC, and also I created the internet gateways. In here you can see my internet gateway. And if I go for a routing table, within the routing table you can clearly see how I created the routing table. Here we have a routing table ID, RTT, and also here we have a VPC ID also is there. And if I go for routing table, here you can clearly see my VPC public RT, my VPC private RT. Likewise all the routing tables is there. And also I use the Amazon Elastic Container Service ECS for create the cluster. And here this is how I use the Fargate for my Dockerize images for a run. And here selecting the cluster, and here we can see the for use of my Fargate. I selected the create. This is how I create the Fargate select the cluster template and configure it, I had to select the this option. And after I select this option, here I created the my cluster. And after I create in the my cluster, here you can see the all the uh, task. Here now its status is active and zero Fargate now, still we didn't run it, right? And create the new task definition using Fargate, and here I make it and run it. And task definition fuel container, and this is I use the task definition name fuel container. And create services. In here I created the Fargate services. This is how is step 1 for a configuration service, step 2 for a configuration network, step 3 for a set auto scaling, and the review is there. When I create the services, first I have to mention the all the task definition and the cluster name. Likewise I had to mention it. And after when I create the services, I had to select the subnetting is there, and the creating application load balancer. In here actually we have a different type of load balancer: application load balancer, network load balancer, and the gateway load balancer. In here actually I use the create load balancer, create application load balancer, I use it, and I gave the name as my ALB. And finishing creating services. After I created the services, you can clearly see that my cluster Fargate and Linux operating system is Linux, and the task definition is there, and the number of stars is there, minimum health, and the also is there. And after I configure the network, right, VPC ID is there, and the subnetting, and the IP, and the container port. Within the local server I use the 4000, and here I use the container port ID as a 3000. And the API is APP, I mentioned as a name as APP for a API, and the listening port is 80. And checking the running services, and now you can clearly see that my program is running now active fuel container. Likewise Fargate, I use the Fargate, and here you can see the fuel container 1.1, it's running on here. This is the proof of the running. And here also I mentioned as listening port as a 80, right? And here application working proof in the AWS, and here my ALB dash 6329 8577.US EST1. Likewise I mention it here. This is the proof of the my application run on the Fargate channel, creating a port into 3000. I mentioned it. This is the my URL in order to run the my fuel system. But in here I wanted to mention, and this is the my proof for a run the my Elastic Computer Cloud. I had to pay it for this one. For average normally this one $28 I expend for this. And here these are the services within the my AWS Elastic Computer Cloud for a data transfer, Elastic Container Service, Elastic Load Balancer, Cloud. Likewise I have to expend this of this is actually proof for a run on the my application. That's all for me. Thank you very much, sir.